Transaction activity has been muted during this transitory period of time in rates. I think it's coming, but I still think there's a gap between seller pricing expectations and, frankly, where the cost of capital has moved.
Joining me today is Jim Taylor, President and CEO of Brixmor Property Group. So can you describe how Brixmor is positioned to respond to rising levels of tenant disruption and macro volatility?
We're in the open air space. We're actually seeing great fundamental supply-demand characteristics, so much so that many of our retailer tenants are actually looking through the expected disruption to 24 and 25 to commit to new store openings to fill their pipelines. So, we've positioned ourselves, I think, pretty well to handle disruption. We have a lot of embedded growth and growth that's on its way for signed leases and delivering reinvestment against a backdrop, as I mentioned, of really good fundamental supply-demand. There's really not been a lot of new supply in our space in the last 10 to 15 years. Retailers recognize that, and the supply that is there is from the disruption, the Bed Bath boxes, et cetera. We actually are finding ourselves in a position where we're having to compete with retailers for those leasehold interests at bankruptcy. So, the supply-demand fundamentals are good. And again, as I mentioned, as a platform, we have a lot of embedded growth that I think is going to position us to outperform.
And what do you expect to see in terms of portfolio recycling and transaction activity for the rest of the year?
Transaction activity has been muted during this transitory period of time in rates. I think it's coming, but I still think there's a gap between seller pricing expectations and, frankly, where the cost of capital has moved. That'll correct itself over time. I do believe the public markets have overcorrected a bit. They tend to lead where the private markets are. But what will drive that activity will be increased needs for refinancing, as well as additional capital. And as private owners in particular face a more constrained credit market, it presents an opportunity for public companies like ourselves to step in and provide that liquidity.
And do you see potential to increase density at your properties, and what might that look like?
We do. There are really two ways. One is adding additional retail GLA. Our parking lots are large, and we oftentimes have an opportunity to add out-parcel buildings, drive-throughs, et cetera, particularly as we recapture some of the anchor space and eliminate, as we release them, some of the restrictive provisions that prevented us from doing that. But we also have parts of our properties where the higher and better use may be residential or medical office or another type use. And as we did in College Park, Maryland, where we sold a parcel to a student housing developer, we get those parcels entitled for that complementary use and then monetize it typically through sale.